Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope everybody is doing good. Welcome back to another live. Today we'll be interviewing Richard Tait. Nate, what's going on? Mr. Millwood, Richie, Kamaria, big up everybody. Jeremy, Renford, big up. Shout out to everybody who's coming on. Today we're going to be interviewing Mr. Richard Tait, former air traffic controller here in Kingston, and Kurt, big up as well. And also he was with the airport operations team at an airport in the United States. So we're going to be talking to him today. Hopefully those who have an interest to become an air traffic controller or work in the operations field will benefit from this interview. But in the meanwhile, promoting the Aviation Club of Jamaica apparel. So far we have hats. So if you like white, this is what a white hat looks like. If you like black, this is what the black hat looks like. If you're interested in getting, you can send me a DM via the club's page to get your hat. Also have shirts for those who are interested. I think most people are mostly interested in the hats, right? Not necessarily the shirts. Not everybody wears polo shirts, but this is what the black shirt looks like with the logo, and of course I showed you the hats. So for those who are just joining and wanted a glimpse at the hats, this is what the white one looks like. This is what the black one looks like. Alright, so for those who are just joining, welcome again everybody. Thank you for those who have been joining our Instagram live feeds every weekend. Yes, Richie, there is it affecting? Is everybody hearing me clearly? Can everybody hear me clearly? Please give me a thumbs up if you can, so that I know that you're hearing me clearly. There is a fan running in the background, but if it is taking away the sound, the quality of the sound, please let me know. Is it any better, Richie? Hopefully that's better. Just turn it off. All right, so let's get Mr. Richard Tait on the live. So for those who are just joining, we're going to be interviewing Mr. Richard Tait. He's a former air traffic controller here in Kingston, Jamaica at the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority. Also worked in the airport operations field in the United States. So on the live now and get the show on the road. And thank you again to everybody who has been back every Sunday. Richard.
Yes, greetings.
How you doing, man?
It's good to see you. Good to see you.
It is good to see you as well. How you doing?
Well, hanging in there.
Likewise. So I was just giving the viewers a brief introduction as to what we'll be doing today. That you have been in the air traffic control. You have been an air traffic controller here in Jamaica for a few years, and you've also had experience in the airport operations field. So what I wanted to do, as you have been familiar with the interviews that we have done every weekend, starting with Richard Cunningham and then moving up to you now, and we're going to be continuing with others after. But we just wanted to, get a brief introduction as to who Richard Tait is before we even get into the meat of things, with you being an aviation professional and so on. So, if you'd like to go ahead and start, who is Richard Tait? Taking aviation out of it for a sec, who is the man that we're going to be interviewing today?
Okay. All right, Sam, let me first say, it's a real pleasure being here with you. Um, I am Richard Tait, just a regular guy, aviation enthusiast first and foremost,
Mm-hmm.
aviation professional, a close second, because we remain aviation enthusiasts even whether or not we are actually in the industry. So I'm
Absolutely.
an enthusiast first and foremost.
Absolutely.
Um, right now, I'm from Port Antonio, and yes, I'm a Titchfield old boy, and yes, um, my my personal interests are mostly, believe it or not, cars and motorcycles. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
um, I really don't spend a lot of time looking at planes. I spend more time looking at cars and motorcycles.
Okay.
Um, I'm 42 years old, almost 43. Um, I I'm married. I have one daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm now in Sunrise in Fort Lauderdale area.
Okay.
Um, you know, um, outside of aviation, I'm just a regular guy. You know.
Okay, cool. And so you went to Titchfield, from Portland, went to
Yes.
Titchfield. What was life at Titchfield like for you?
Okay. Well, I started teaching in 1988,
Mm-hmm.
um, and Titchfield back then was, and I suppose it is still that way. But Titchfield at the time was, the school to attend in Portland. At the time, there were only two, well, three high schools, but there were two government high schools in all of Portland from the east to west.
Mm-hmm.
The other one being Happy Grove,
Okay.
and um, so it was a real privilege for a lot of students to attend Titchfield, and those of us who were there, we truly felt like we were the cream of the crop, and to be honest with you, I mean, it's debatable, but I'm a Titchfield man, so yes, we were the cream of the crop, still are.
Okay.
As some members here, they digging up
From
Titchfield, so they
Titchfield,
don't.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay. So did you participate in any sports at Titchfield? I know you guys were.
absolutely, absolutely not,
No?
absolutely not. No, I was a nerd at school,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
complete nerd. I took part in no physical activity, took part
Mm-hmm.
in nothing whatsoever. I just wanted to go to school, which I didn't want to do. I don't like school,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I did it because I
You
wanted
had to,
I
yeah.
wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah.
So I had to buckle down, and I made good on it. But I was by no means a sports person. Still not into sports.
So hold on, you said you wanted to become a pilot at that time when you
Oh
were at
yes,
Titchfield?
absolutely yes.
Okay.
I
That's
discovered
interesting.
yeah I discovered the aviation industry when I was in grade two.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I wanted to be an artist.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but when I went to the library, the Port Antonio Public Library,
Mm-hmm.
and I selected a book. I saw it. It was on a rack, and I picked it up, and it had the word jetliner on the top of it.
Okay.
And I said, okay, let me have a look at this.
Yeah.
So I took it home and I read it cover to cover, and I took out my pencil and I started to draw everything I saw in there because I wanted to be an artist, so I
Yeah.
was just drawing things. But over the time that I had this book, it started to sink in,
Mm-hmm.
and by the time I had to bring that book in, I wanted to be a pilot, and it grieved me to hand over the book to the librarian,
Yeah.
you know, and that was the last I saw of that book. Never saw it again.
Okay.
And in my adult years, I've been actually trying to find a reprint of it in some fashion, but I can't find it. But that's where it started in grade
Okay.
two.
Okay. So just to clarify, you didn't want to be a Vibes Cartel in terms of the artist. You wanted to draw, to do
Exactly.
graphics. Okay. Okay.
Right. Pencil, pencil and paper,
Yeah. All right.
that was it.
Sounds good. So after Titchfield, what happened? Where did you go? What were the next few years like after Titchfield?
Okay. When I have to back up a little bit because we have to set the
Okay.
stage for when I depart.
Yeah, man.
When I was in about third form, well, actually, when I was in primary school, I wrote to British Airways in England, asking them
Okay.
um, if they were interested in me in some way. This is about grade 5 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And they wrote back to me saying yes, they had a cadet program that they did sponsor foreign nationals and so on and so forth and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got my A levels, I should let them know and so on. So I was excited.
Okay.
So when around third form, I wrote them again to say, hey, look, I'm coming close. Don't forget me. But this time around, they wrote back saying that they had canceled their cadet program, and it was a devastating event for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided to push along. Me and a friend of mine, Robert Barrett,
Okay.
we were buddies. Everything we did everything together, and he also wanted to be a pilot.
Okay.
Now, when we left school, we took two different paths. Okay, he decided to go to Wings, and I decided to try out for the Royal Air Force in England.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I went to England and tried again, and it wasn't successful,
Okay.
and came back to Jamaica and decided to try it for JDF. So, like Lieutenant Commander Lundy had said before, I went through a lot of what he went through. So
Okay.
I know what he was talking about.
Sure.
Okay, it's one of the roughest things I've ever been through in my life.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So in any event, as he said, first you have to be an officer in the JDF, and then, if they see something in you, then you're selected to go off to flight training or wherever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually did my air wing aptitude test prior to doing my officer's test, which incidentally, my invigilator for that exam was Martin Sutherland.
Ah.
Yes, so Martin Sutherland is somebody that I've known
For
the
a while.
longest, right?
Yeah.
So this was back in 1995. So I passed my aptitude test with about a 90%, somewhere thereabout. I don't remember the exact score, but I did relatively well. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was good to go. I didn't really understand the process, but I thought I was good to go.
Yeah.
So then I was told to turn up to HQ JDF the following week to for an interview with Lieutenant Colonel Barclay.
Okay.
So here I am. What? I get in an interview with the big guys. So anyway, I got there and saw Lieutenant Colonel Barclay, and he said to me, "Did you see a group of gentlemen downstairs?" So I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, join them." But that group of gentlemen were on their way to Newcastle, but I wasn't prepared for that.
Oh.
Wasn't prepared at all. I come to do an interview.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, went to Newcastle, and I wasn't successful. Okay, out of the 11 of us that um that were in that selection board, only one was selected.
Oh.
That would have been Merrick Lloyd, Major Merrick Lloyd. He was the only one out of the group who was
Selected.
selected.
Okay.
Right, but he eventually went on to Earring, but some years later, but in any event, I hit a wall because my parents couldn't afford to send me to Wings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, British Airways wasn't working out. Royal Air Force wasn't working out. JDF wasn't working out.
Mm-hmm.
So my aviation career kind of hit a wall. I said, you know what? I'm going to sail ships. If I can't fly planes, I'm going to sail ships. So, right. So after Maritime Institute, I went in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so while at Jamaica Maritime Institute, we did meteorology, and during the one of the meteorology lessons, we were taken over to the airport and at Norman Manley up to the Met office,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't interested in Met and them things. I
Yeah.
still am not,
Mm-hmm.
but I just went along. And while we were there, I said to the Met officer, I said, could we get a tour of the control tower? I said, yeah, man, no problem, man. Let me make a call. So within a matter of minutes, they said, yeah, man, come, we can go. So I went up to the tower, and there were two people there. a young miss and a young man.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to them, asked them, questions, whatever. First time in a control tower, and they told me that um, that training would be done in Jamaica, I'd be paid during training. And it sounded like
Sound
an
alright.
option.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I take it and I put it in my back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, 1997 rolled along and I went on to sea. I was at sea for a few months and then I said to myself, um, um, this is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I said to myself, I was going to do one out of two things. Okay. I was either going to join the police force
Mm-hmm.
or I was going to the air traffic control. So I went back to Jamaica and, wrote my letters here and there. And it was December of 1998.
Okay.
I returned to Jamaica in August of 98. And in December of 98, I was called for air traffic control. But
Okay.
the same day I was called for an interview, I was told to come in. I had gotten a job teaching maths, integrated science, and physics at Happy Grove.
Okay.
So, as a matter of principle, I called back Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority and I spoke with Miss Jerome Bell,
Mm-hmm.
and she said to me, "Listen, I was a teacher. I understand. I respect your position. Okay, you will keep your documents on file."
Okay.
I said, "Okay." January came along. January of '99 came along, and I saw an ad in the paper again calling for controllers. But at this time now, I was given an exam class. So we're talking about
Okay.
CXC and GCE. So I couldn't leave the kids
Up and
hanging.
leave. Yeah.
So call back Miss Bell. I said, "Miss Bell, problem about exam class." So
Yeah.
she said, "Do not worry. We have your documents. However, you may not make it this year. Okay? We may not
Oh,
make it this
okay.
year because we're probably not going to hire again for this year. So you're talking about a year, maybe two."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Boy, Miss Bell, I can't leave these kids, matter of principle." So anyway, by about June, I saw another ad in the paper.
Same year,
And I
June,
said,
same year.
same year, 1999. I said, you know what? The Chinaman said, three is dead. So three is the death of my teaching career.
Yeah.
Call Miss Bell and I said, "Miss Bell, sign me up." And she said, "Okay, no problem. Just
Mm-hmm.
stay, stand by. We'll let you know."
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, um, I got called around August for an aptitude test,
Okay.
and no, yeah, and then shortly after that, no, I got called for it was an aptitude test of sorts, but there was a second round of aptitude test, later on,
Mm-hmm.
and then on August, I beg pardon, September 27, 1999, I started training.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that brings us to the beginning of my ATC and
Aviation
aviation career.
career.
Right.
Okay. So you started training at 1999, you said, and all of the training was done in Jamaica at that time, right?
Yes. All of the training was, well, for me, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years in air traffic, well, JCAA has had groups or one person here or there who has gone overseas to train for whatever reason.
Sure.
But for me, all of my training, my air traffic control training, was done in Jamaica. So
Uh,
at the
mm-hmm.
time, the training institute was out by the Port Royal Road, just at where the radar dome is.
The dome is okay. Yeah.
Right. It was below that. It was below the dome in a building, a very small building. That's where we started. Of course,
Oh,
there was no radar at the time,
sure.
you know. Um,
Okay.
so that's where it started, right there.
But what was the application process like first and foremost? Because I'm sure there are a few people here who would love to become air traffic controllers either in the near or distant future. And of course, they're all Jamaicans, or would be Jamaicans. But for those who wanted to become or want to become an air traffic controller, what is the process like? Or at least, because I know that it may be a little bit different now, but at least back in your time, what was the process like to become an air traffic controller?
It was surprisingly easy. It was
Okay.
incredibly easy, and to be honest with you, it is still easy.
Okay.
The application process was
Mm-hmm.
very easy. Still is. I just wrote a letter, a standard application letter addressed to Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority. Of course, back then we didn't have any internet, so it was amazing how we got anything done. To be honest, but
Yeah.
you use a phone book and you find an address, you find a phone number, etc. You kind of, So I wrote a letter,
Mm-hmm.
expressing interest, and I just attached a copy of my resume,
Okay.
and you know that's how it went. I was called in initially for the first stage of aptitude test where we had to write an essay
Okay.
of you know the history um, of aviation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
another friend of mine who went to teach with me, I met up with him on that aptitude test. He unfortunately wasn't successful.
Okay.
I went on to the second round. The
Mm-hmm.
second round was a lot more intense, where there was a panel. For example, one of the things that they did to us was, you sat down in front of a panel of about six controllers, six senior controllers,
Okay.
and they said, Mr. Tait, we're just going to ask you a few questions,
Mm-hmm.
and so questions that they're coming from you, based on your resume. We're going to
Okay.
ask you, so you say, just tell us when you're ready. So I said, sure, go ahead.
Okay.
By the time I said go ahead, there were three questions at me already. By the time I started to answer the first, there were three more.
Okay.
And the questions just kept coming, kept coming, kept coming. So I realized what was happening.
Yeah.
So I just remained calm and just answered anyone that I could answer at that time. And I
Okay.
just I just kept going. No matter if I didn't get to answer one, I didn't delay. I just answered, answered,
Yeah.
answered. It just kept coming at me, coming at me, coming at me. And what that was supposed to do was supposed to show them how you handled, how you multitask, and how you handle the stress of a lot of information coming
Coming at
at you.
you. Okay.
So
And,
uh,
and what kind of
so
questions did they ask though in that interview, if you remember
what's
any?
your name? What's your name? What's your date of birth? What's your mother's maiden name? Where are you from? What kind of car do you like? If they just ask questions that I
Ah.
couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't ask any air traffic or aviation related question.
Okay.
And then that's one of the things I want people to know is that in air traffic control, 99% of the people who apply do not know what they're getting themselves in. They
Okay.
think they know because most people will see the control tower at the airport, and
Uh-huh.
that's what they attach themselves to.
So okay.
But that's just one of the three major disciplines within air traffic control. So the organizers, they know this. They don't expect you to know anything or anything
Okay.
much. If you do, great.
Mm-hmm.
So so for me it was a fair selection process. My understanding though is that there were somewhere in the region of 300 applicants um, when my group was selected, and out of that group only 10 were selected.
Only 10. 10 out of 300.
Yeah. But
Wow.
at the
Okay.
time, though, well, to answer the question about about the application, at the
Yeah.
time we didn't need degrees. We only
Okay.
we didn't even need A levels,
Mm-hmm.
but you needed five O levels. Five O levels are CXCs,
Mm-hmm.
two A levels, or a diploma from UTech or
Okay.
something of the sort. Because in my intake of 10 people, only one person had a degree.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Contrast that with today that um, a degree is almost mandatory.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and
Um.
that's
Which
that's fine.
Yeah, which is probably the only change with with what's required currently, just having a degree, having that level of education behind you. But in terms of the
Right.
entire application process, it may be just the same, filling out a form, writing a form, a letter to say that you're applying for, such and such position. And if you are called, if the CAA does show interest in you, then you'd have to
Yeah.
come in, do the aptitude test, and then follow the steps after that, which would be my next question to you. What were the steps after the aptitude test? What was the next phase after successfully completing the aptitude?
Okay, so after the aptitude test, when we're and I was informed that I was successful. It wasn't long after the second phase. It was just a matter of maybe 2 or 3 days, to be honest with you, because as I mentioned, I started in late
Mm-hmm.
September. So here I was. I went back to teaching. September morning, as they call
Okay.
it. First month of September, I was back in the classroom. And the following day, when I got home from work, I got the letter
Okay.
saying that you have been selected and you are
Wow.
to come
Okay.
in the 27th of September. So I literally I carried in my resignation letter the following day. And yeah, and my students were in tears. The girls were in tears.
Yeah.
The boys were trying to hold up. That's the type of relationship I had with my students.
Certainly.
And so the next step, we started our ground, what we call ground school.
Yeah.
Okay, and it was the most rigorous thing I've ever had to go through in my life.
Okay.
Our first week, we were introduced, basic stuff, phraseology, little,
Mm-hmm.
the aviation clock, the UTC and the
Sure. Yes.
airspace, the Jamaican flight information, the Kingston flight
FIR.
information, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Now, every Monday morning, we had a test, every Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that test, you only had an opportunity to fail one. If you
Okay.
fail two, you're out.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And that test was on that which was learned the week before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the first week was like a holiday. And then enter week two, you start to get down into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Okay. After the first Monday morning test,
Mm-hmm.
telling you. And so, we went through that. That was a few weeks. I will say this. Okay. I was not the sharpest tool in that shed. Okay, because all of this was new to me. My
Yeah.
attitude towards studies was a lot different. Okay, um, from my high school days, I cruised through high school and never have a study a day.
Yeah.
Cruise, but here we are now in a different world. So
Yeah.
my I didn't know to study. Believe you me, I did. I cruised through Maritime Institute. Okay, but here we are in your traffic, hit up on a wall.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it so happened that I failed one of those tests.
Okay.
And when I got the results, um, it kind of knocked me back into reality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because looking back, my when we started in that ground school, we had taken a little tour over to the Kingston Air Traffic Control Center. Well, it was the area control center at the time, which was right next door to the school. So we walked into the building and there were no radar screens. I was expecting to see radar screens. There were no windows, nothing. And this is,
Okay.
and people were talking and all type of thing going on. I'm like, no man, I can't do this. I need to call my principal so I can get my little work a country. You see, because this is not what I signed up for. I
For
signed up for
yeah.
I signed up for the tour. I never signed up for this. It's the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So so in failing that test, I look back on that feeling that I had and I said to myself, I cannot go back country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just first and foremost, there's too much money involved. Okay,
Definitely.
I was earning 4 times what I was earning as a teacher, so I can't go back to that. So
Yeah.
um so I just buckled down,
Change your attitude.
changed my attitude,
Hmm.
and we pushed forward.
Okay.
And December of '99, we finished our basic training,
Hmm.
and we went on to more or less like an apprenticeship in the control center. Okay, so
Okay.
back in those days, what we used to do was we're still in training,
Hmm.
because we weren't controllers yet. We didn't have a license.
Hmm.
So when we went into the control center, we were exposed to flight planning. We're exposed to aeronautical information service.
Hmm.
We send NOTAMs and that sort of thing. And we wrote a heck of a lot of strips. Now, in those days, there was no radar. So
Okay.
controllers use what we call flight progress strips.
Hmm.
Um, and each strip was handwritten. And I
Those
mean,
are
there
those
were
colored strips.
those are the colored strips, exactly.
Ah,
So they're
okay.
slightly different. The area control ones are slightly different from the ones in the tower. Like you'd say a Tinspan or Manley or a
Yeah.
Samsung for that matter. They're configured differently.
Okay.
So so in those days, a flight that went north to south would probably have 3 strips: an entry strip, a middle strip, and an exit strip.
Hmm.
But if there's a flight I was going across from, say, overflying Grand Cayman, from, say, let's say from Texas going down to, say, Venezuela, that would be
Sure.
7 strips. And we had to write every one by hand.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was fun for us. It
Okay.
was fun. We developed all kinds of, different things to make the work a little bit easier.
Okay.
Um, so you would be familiar with, for example, Charles Jones,
Hmm.
from the WhatsApp group. He was an area control at the time. I was on shift with him, and he was very instrumental in, getting me, acclimatized. But once again, I was not the sharpest tool in that shed either. No, I
Yeah.
was not. Um, Primarily because, remember, I was still very young
Hmm.
and had a lot of learning to do. Okay, and I remember I was people were we used to when you have attained, for example, when you've completed writing strips, you get to a level of proficiency.
Hmm.
Then you were moved across to what they call a data sector. That's where you'd
Okay.
actually call the adjoining FIRs and pass and receive estimates on flights coming and going. So at that time, you are a little bit more senior.
Senior. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So at that time, there were actually 2 other groups of trainees ahead of us.
Mm.
So they were more senior to us. So the ones that were immediately senior to us were the ones who trained us. The more senior ones, like, for example, Richie Graham,
Hmm.
he was more senior to me. We were trainees together, but he was a little bit more senior to me. So
Okay.
when I got there, those guys were talking to a van and whatever. I thought they were
Yeah.
controllers, not knowing that they were trainees like me. But um, but a lot of my colleagues, because of the shift they were on, they were getting training in that sector. I wasn't getting any. Yeah, and it
Hmm.
was partially because of the shift I was on.
Sure.
And I remember working with a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Gallo, and he was the
Ah.
senior most. Yes, he was this one of the senior most. He was actually an air traffic control cadet. He was like, he wasn't a trainee, but he wasn't a controller either. He was a data person. That was what he did.
Okay.
So he was assigned to kind of oversee us. He gave the final go ahead for us to move on to data training.
Hmm.
And I said to Gallo, Gallo, what do I need to do to, to catch up? And he said to me, you need to love the work. So love the work,
Yeah.
everything will fall into place. And I'm saying to myself, but I love this work. But over time, I started to understand what he was saying. Stop watch people,
Yeah.
you know, concentrate on what you are doing, you know.
Hmm.
And I just kind of buckled down, and then I actually got to a shift that was, in my opinion, a little bit more comfortable. I'm not going to say a better shift because there are some great people on that shift,
Hmm.
but I was a little bit more comfortable on another shift. And
Okay.
so I started pick up pace, pick up pace, pick up pace. And then from there on, it was a little easier. Um, so I stayed in as a data controller, um, as it were. That's what we call it, a data controller at the time.
Mm-hmm.
For until 2002.
Okay.
So from 1999 to 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in fact, in the year 2000, we were joined by a fourth trainee group, which Kurt Solomon and some other guys from YouTube were on that one. So there were actually
Okay.
four groups of trainees at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. So after a point now in 2002, two groups went to the airports.
Okay.
Okay, and there were two in the control center.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed in that for until 2002 when we were sent to aerodrome approach training.
Okay.
Okay, so in those days we used to work with no radar, so we used to work aerodrome and approach control combined
Okay.
without radar. It's procedural aerodrome approach control.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the radar system had already been purchased and installed,
Mm-hmm.
and but no one was trained to use it
To
at
use
that
it.
point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So my group was actually the first group of um of trainees to undergo radar training, whether approach or area. My group was the first.
Okay.
However, what would happen is that area control eventually went radar before approach. But anyway, so at the end of towards the end of 2002, as we were wrapping training in aerodrome approach, um, we realized that we were not going to work radar
Okay.
because things were just not in place. So in January of 2003, I was advised that I would be sent to Montego Bay.
Okay.
I wrote my resignation letter, Sam.
Didn't want to go to
Wrote my
Mobile.
resignation. No, for what? Because I heard some stories about Montego Bay, plane them look like bees in the sky, and no, boss. So because once again, listen to me. Once again, in aerodrome approach training, I was not the sharpest tool in that shed either.
Yeah.
Okay, and yes, I failed one of those Monday morning testing approach again,
Oh.
and yeah. So anyway, I had a talk with a controller by the name of Angela Dyke.
Mm-hmm.
Angela Dyke, in my opinion, is the finest area controller I had ever met.
Okay.
She was awesome. She's the first person to put a handset in my hand and said, "Talk to me, Tait." That time she was an awesome person. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome person. So she said to me, she said, "Tait, let me tell you something. You're my boy. You are going to Montego Bay
Mm-hmm.
because every great controller went to Montego Bay. I'm
Okay.
not asking you a question. You are going."
Yeah.
And I said, "All right, Angie." Because I wanted to be like her. I wanted to be that kind of controller.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. And I never handed in my resignation letter. Went to Mobe. And once again, Sam was not the sharpest tool in that shed either.
Yeah.
Because remember, I was radar trained. So
Yeah.
this procedure thing I had to learn
Not
from scratch.
familiar. Yeah.
Right? So I struggled. And once again, I just could not get a good training officer. Not that they didn't know what they were doing, but I needed somebody who I was comfortable with.
Okay.
And I was struggling. And I remember one day another trainee of mine, another trainee colleague of mine, by a guy by the name of Sean Burton,
Mm-hmm.
was working some traffic man. I was working ground control, which, you didn't need a license to do it. You just needed to be under supervision.
Okay.
And Bert was working air. And when I say Bert, man, I said, hold on. I don't understand one thing that Burton talking. I don't know what's going on. So this was the wake-up call for me that I was not pulling my weight.
Yeah. Have to change the
So
attitude again.
change the attitude again.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to myself, okay. I started to find out what it was that was confusing me.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down there and I looked at Burton work, and he was establishing what we call lateral separation. Okay,
Okay.
so that's when aircraft are laterally situated, and you want to know how much horizontal distance is between them. Okay,
Okay.
so
Mm-hmm.
we used to use what's called VOR DME track separation.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down there and we used to have this little card, this little laminated card on the console top, the top of the console that had the deemed separation. If if aircraft are separated by 20 degrees, you need 20 DME between them, 20 degrees of VOR separation.
Okay.
Need 20 miles between them. Okay, so it gives you the angle and the distance.
Okay.
So I picked up this thing and I said to myself, there must be some mathematical, basis for this, because I'm mathematically minded.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up and I took a piece of paper and pen and I drew up. I draw for a calculator and I started. I said, wait, but this is Pythagoras theorem, man. So I said, wait. So all of a
Yeah.
sudden, no, what? Yes, man. This is not, because it's not mathematical. I can understand it.
Yeah.
I said, yes, all right, watch me on this thing now.
Yeah.
And it was so happened that my training officer changed
Okay.
right at that moment. And I was placed with Nikolai Gabidan.
Okay.
Oh, Nikki is someone who I have great respect for,
Mm-hmm.
because Nikki allowed me to experiment, to spread my wings. She never shouted at me. She would say, try it.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't let them lick, you know? And I would try. Let me tell you something. I pushed Nikki's license to the limit,
Yeah.
and she never backed down. And then let me tell you, I remember one day, I was on a morning shift with Nikki. And she, as usual, she was sitting at a side sector, an auxiliary sector that we had. She was just watching me,
Mm-hmm.
not saying a word. And I'm telling you, in those days, I believe it might have been on Wednesday, because Wednesdays and Saturdays were very busy in Montego Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Still is.
right. And the traffic was just coming and coming. This was about close to 1 o'clock when the morning shift
Mm-hmm.
would have ended. And at this point, you're in the middle of your traffic, and when you're being relieved, it would like you see, people doing double dutch skipping
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then kind of jumping.
Mm-hmm.
That was how it was.
Okay.
Okay. So there was a technique to taking over when it was busy, You have
Yeah.
to stand up over the person, and kind of mirror what they were doing, and
And
that will
then
give you,
jump in.
you just touch them on
Yeah.
the shoulder and just go
Take
in.
over.
And yes, you kind of just ease into the seat,
Yeah.
So anyway, this one day, Richie Graham, by this time he was already a rated controller,
Mm-hmm.
a very good one, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when you're working, you don't even hear that the door open, you don't even know nobody's there or nobody leave, you're just focused.
Mm-hmm.
Them time, Sam, your hand tremble like leaf,
Yeah.
tremble. The hair on your hand stand up,
Yeah.
hot, race, sweat. So I was there working, working. And out of the corner of my ear, I just hear Richie Graham say, check him out. Check him out. Now, when you hear another controller say, check him out, you
Yeah.
know you have it. That's what
Yeah.
when in ATC, when you've gotten the flow, we say you have it.
Yeah.
You have it. And
Okay.
when I heard it, Graham say, check him out, him have it. I say, yes,
Big
yes.
confidence booster.
Oh gosh, hell yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, but my training did continue. My training continued after that. And
Mm-hmm.
in December of 2003, um, I got my license as a
Yeah.
procedural aerodrome approach controller.
Okay.
Right, so it was a long road, 1999 to 2003.
So what,
Long
three
road,
3 years? Yeah. Well,
4
that's
years.
good. That's a very exciting
Yeah.
story leading up to getting your ratings or license. So it's an actual license that air traffic controllers get to say,
Yes, yes. It looks very similar to the pilot's license. It's
oh,
very similar. Yeah. Um,
okay.
it was when I was successful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, it 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 was a it was the most triumphant moment of my life
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
up to that point. It was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is this, I had to work, and one of the things that I did, because I was never able to quote scripture, as we say. When you say you're quoting scriptures, you know the regulations. So
Mm-hmm.
you
Word
have
for word.
people regulations. So right, so when somebody can quote regulations, we say that they quote scripture.
Yeah.
So I was never a controller who could quote scriptures. I know what the scriptures say,
Mm-hmm.
but I define myself by understanding what the scriptures mean
Mm-hmm.
and how to apply them.
Sure.
And how I did that while I was in training in Montego Bay, me and guys like Kurt Solomon and William Phillips and these guys, we used to leave work and go over to the domestic terminal,
Mm-hmm.
introduce ourselves to the team here and Airlink pilots and Air
Okay.
Jamaica Express pilots, and just say, hey, how is the service? How you feel? Do you have any suggestions? Do you have any concerns?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Okay.
um, I hear Solomon here. Yeah, so Solomon here wants me to tell a story about some of the anecdotes from Tower days, but we can get into those later on.
Sure.
So right, so we used to just we were always told that this was the way to do things,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody had ever asked the pilots if that's the way they wanted to do things.
Mm-hmm.
How did that help you? When I started, what? Keep the speed up. You're telling a system 152 to keep the speed up.
Yeah.
You have a Boeing 727. You're number one. Keep the speed up.
Mm-hmm.
So over time, as you spoke to pilots, we started to realize that, wait a minute, this 152 can't keep no speed up.
Yeah.
You understand? It's going as fast as it can.
As it can. Yeah.
So right. So until you talk to the pilot, until you talk to the customer, you really don't know if the service you're providing is good or not.
Sure.
Um, I remember even how the way we handle helicopters. There was just total chaos as to how to handle helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
One day, um, I was driving to Kingston and I realized that the helicopter, the Island Hoppers helicopter was right up by Otrius there,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
right by the Backside terminal.
Mm-hmm.
And I just pull in, and I introduced myself. It was Chris Douglas who was in the office.
Okay.
Um, and Chris Douglas, I sat with him for about an hour. And one of the things I took away from it, so he said, look here, it takes 3 hands to fly a helicopter and I only have two. Okay, so some of the things you guys telling us to do in certain phases of flight we
Yeah.
cannot do.
Not practical.
So I made a mental note of a lot of these things and I took them back to work with me. And I said, look here, I was talking to the helicopter pilot and I said, don't do that. And that him want him cannot do it.
Yeah.
So, and that is how it was. If somebody talked to a pilot and got some information, then we brought it back to the team,
Sure.
you know. So that is how my group did things,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Back in those days as well, Air Jamaica 75 used to go Sangster to um, to Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
and they used to fly 320s mostly. There was only one 321 that could make that flight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they were always on minimum fuel, always on minimum fuel.
Okay.
But the problem was that 75 used to conflict with another Air Jamaica flight inbound every day.
Okay.
So what we had to do, we were trained to do what we call tracking out. So we would put 75 on a 030 heading,
Okay.
okay? And then we'd have the inbound, and then once we had altitude swap, we would then turn 075 on course.
Mm-hmm.
But me and a couple of the guys sit down one day, we say, no man, that can't be right because this guy is on minimum fuel. This is a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So what we started to do was send 75 immediately on course
Mm-hmm.
and then change the radial of the inbound
Of the other
aircraft.
one. Okay.
Right. So when we started to do it, the area controller called us because the area controller at that time had radar, so he could see what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So we called and I said, what kind of gnarlic separation that you guys using? Gnarlic mean that you don't have any established separation. Just do a thing, because they're not going to hit.
Yeah.
But we say, just watch it work. And it worked wonders. It worked wonders. The delays at 75 used to get and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So the
So,
pilots really appreciated it.
oh yeah. I mean, let me tell you, 75 was a rough flight to work because sometimes they used to tow the aircraft to the whole short line.
Are you serious?
Because they didn't want to burn the fuel.
Wow.
You see? And then Justin Martin just joined in. He can tell you
Yeah.
that 75 was a rough flight. And um, so these are little things. We used to sit down here. We used to live on the company quarters, which was just like an 8-minute walk from the tower.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to sit down and plan out how we're going to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to share notes about, things that happened. And we used to say, so when I went up again, I'm going to try this or I'm going to try that.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it. That's how we did it.
Okay.
And during, Martin is asking to tell you, yeah, Martin, you need to tell us how rough 70 Jamaica 075 was to LA, man. So so um so yeah, so it's really talking to a lot of the pilots. I became friends with a lot of Air Jamaica pilots, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of Air Jamaica Express pilots, and because of the information exchange, I was able to adjust the way I control. So um so for example, we used to tell Air Jamaica Express they used to fly dash 8s at the time.
Yeah.
Clear the immediate. Are you able to immediate takeoff? Affirm. Clear the immediate takeoff. No delay on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the dash 8 would go out on the runway and stop. You said, what is this? What
Yeah.
kind of immediate takeoff is it? But when I started to interact with the express pilots, I started to realize why. One of them showed me the departure checklist for dash 8,
It's long.
and it requires the
Yeah.
parking to be set
Oh.
once you're
Okay.
lined up with. So express could not do an immediate. So
Ah.
when I when I brought that back to the guys, oh, all right, express target, no more immediate, no more immediate.
Yeah.
No more immediate. They're gonna wait, and that's
Yeah.
fine. You know what I mean? And so my group changed things. My group was hated
Yeah.
because for starters, we made friends with the pilots.
Mm-hmm.
We were one of the first groups to not develop this us and them type of attitude.
Just
Okay,
one community.
one community, because
Yeah.
I put it back to my training days in the center. There's a controller by the name of Kurt Green. Big up Kurt Green. Okay, Kurt Green said to me, Tait, Simon never had no license. I was still struggling. He said to me, Tait, we are here to help the pilots. We are here to
Absolutely.
help the airlines. We are here to help the aircraft operators.
Mm-hmm.
So if what you're doing not helping the pilots, the airlines, or the aircraft operators, don't damn do
Not,
it.
yeah. Yeah.
So I took that with me, right,
Okay.
throughout my entire career.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I got that from Kurt Green. Big up to Kurt Green.
Okay.
Okay, and that is the way I've always operated. I am a service provider.
Okay.
Okay, and if my life is made more complicated, my job is more complicated, so that the pilots and the passengers and whatever can have a comfortable ride,
Mm-hmm.
so be it. That's what I'm paid for. I'm not
Yeah.
paid. Yes, I can work with my foot up on the console. Of course, I can do it, but that's not what
Mm-hmm.
I'm paid for. I'm paid to sweat.
Yeah.
You see, so that's how I approach it, and you know, there are other things that I developed on my own, my
Mm-hmm.
own style.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one of the things that um, pilots have told me that I was helpful, and I actually got in trouble for it several times, but I continued to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for example, when we were giving vectors, big pardon, we were giving traffic
Advisory.
reports to, we would say, traffic, you know, 1 o'clock, 5 miles,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, clock position. I spoke to some pilots and I said, boy, Tait, sometime when you tell me 1 o'clock, sometime the plane there might 3 o'clock. So I said to
Okay.
myself, okay, this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
So what I started to do, I started to say, 6 November Alpha, traffic Airbus 320, 5 miles north of Round Hill.
Okay.
Boom. Now, this guy knows where Round Hill is. He have a rough idea what 5 miles look like. So if the aircraft even inverted, he knows where to look.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that kind of position is that kind of information is not standard. Okay,
Yeah.
and the center chief used to sit down when I was working, and the center chief used to sit down in his office and start listening to Tait work, and guaranteed the supervisor's phone would ring,
Mm-hmm.
and the supervisor Tait, you know, center chief say you must use proper phraseology. But you
Yeah.
say, believe me, there are times you would sit there all day listening to me until one day it just came out. I said, Tait, if I had a rating to where this sector, take you out of it. But
Okay.
I did because I know there were limitations with our radar system
Mm-hmm.
that, for me, I had to get around. And the best
Yeah.
way to do it was to tell these guys their position based on how I was confident. You
And
see? And
the greatest thing about that too is that you actually went out and networked with the pilots to actually find out what works. You have
exactly.
been told how to do a particular thing, but then is it really effective? Are the pilots really benefiting from it? Is it making their lives easier or harder?
Exactly. No, I want to make something clear for those that are listening.
Mm-hmm.
I did not break any rules. Never broke any rules.
Yeah.
What you see, again, this is what I did for myself. I got a wholesome understanding of the rules, and then I learned how to bend them.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
The thing, what my arguing point was that there's a section of the regs that states that where there is no established aviation phraseology,
Mm-hmm.
standard English is to be used.
Okay.
So I manipulated that in that fashion so that
Mm-hmm.
I could do that. So I could argue that, look, when I tell this man 1 o'clock, he's seen aircraft at 3, so I don't know what is going on. So I have to use clear and plain English.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I know works.
Yeah.
So that is how I got out of trouble with that one.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me commend you for actually taking that approach to actually speaking with the pilots. I think on behalf of the pilots, we all owe you a beer to have in some way influenced how things are now. So between all of the pilots on the live, we'll make up and buy a case of a red stripe. But we're coming up on the 1 hour mark with Instagram, so we're gonna cut the live now. We should have like 30 seconds remaining, and then we're gonna join back the live and continue again. All right.
Sure.
All right. Great. All right, so we're back again for part two of our interview with Mr. Richard Tait, former air traffic controller with the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority. As usual, Instagram only give us 1 hour to broadcast each segment. So we're going to go ahead with part two, giving everybody a chance to join back in, and then we'll join Richard Tait back to the live. But so far, it has been an inspirational and an exciting story to see Mr. Tait, joining that. Well, first of all, wanting to be a pilot, but that didn't pan out. But the just the love for the industry, he decided to go on a different path and become an air traffic controller. And not just being an air traffic controller, had his own struggles in getting to where he had gotten, but at the same time, changed his attitude and, overcame the struggles, and not just that, actually made a difference into how the flow of air traffic was managed, and what he actually struggled with, he actually, at some point excelled in. So the story so far is great, and we're going to be continuing with part two. So thank you again for coming back, everyone. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the live so far. So we're gonna bring back Richard to the live in a moment and continue the story before we get to the usual question and answer segments. All right, welcome back. So I was just sharing with the folks before you rejoin the live that it's actually very inspirational to know that you started out the way you did, and from the initial stages, it was always a struggle to the point of that you wanted to just let it go, try something else, but you overcame those struggles, you changed the attitude, and not only that, actually came and made a difference and influenced, brought a positive impact in how things were done. Things were done much better, and you did something that others probably weren't doing at the time, which was to actually go there and speak with the pilots. It's not a us and them industry. It's an us industry. We all make up the industry. We all have a crucial role to play to support one another. So very inspiring. As I said before I cut the live, and I must commend you for being that type of person, for adjusting the attitude, for trying, as well as a shout out to your, should I say, mentors, those who had pushed you, had contributed to your development just the same. It's always good to have a mentor, somebody who can pull you through and guide you, and, that overall mentorship has to say, what, come, there's going to be a struggle, but we're going to be here with you. We're going to see you through. And they eventually left you to fly on your own, and you did excel. So that's pretty good, But what I wanted to find out as well was just to kind of get some of the experiences on the job. Did you have to deal with any emergencies? Was there a particular day that really challenged you? As I said, you're hired to burst that level of sweat to ensure that the pilots are looked after. Tell us about some of those significant memories on the job. You're actually now and left, I guess, to fly.
Wow. There are a lot of situations that occur that I can definitely say. Lot of I beg pardon. I just helping my wife out there for a second. Okay. So one of the most challenging days of my career, there was a Saturday in question, and I was relieving another controller. And when I got to the sector, This was after I'd matriculated into radar now. This was somewhere after 2008. I'm gonna say closer to 2010, 11, somewhere that. And when I looked at the screen, runway 25 was active at Samsung. Now, anyone who knows Samsung will tell you that when the weather is bad, that's when runway 25 is active. Okay, it's not like Manly, where it can be 1-2 today, 3-0 today. No. At Sangster, it's runway 07. Once you see runway 25, the weather is bad. And
Okay.
when the weather is bad, there's usually a weather cell just about 5 miles north of the departure path for 07, which is just where Rostock is. And there is weather over Omaxi, which is the holding point. Okay?
Okay.
So you are locked. So this day in question, runway 25 is active. And there were 2 aircraft on final for 25. The first one was about 7 miles at 10,000 feet. The second one was about 11 miles, 13,000 feet. And the controller was asking the first aircraft if he was able for a visual. It wasn't going to happen because at 7 miles, the aircraft is supposed to be 1,900, 2,000 feet.
But he's at
So this
10.
guy 8,000 feet higher than he's supposed to be, and he could not. So up comes the third aircraft. Air Jamaica coming in from Manly at 2,000, 12,000 feet. Then I look in the corner, top left hand corner of the screen, and I see 2 more aircraft coming in from the northwest. All right. So I said to the controller, I have it. And the controller said to me, but I haven't given you the traffic. I have it. So here we are, we had to unravel. I had to unravel this. And at this point, a crowd draw around me. Would draw. And I started to put a picture in my mind. I said, these 2 guys that are on final 25, forget it. So what I did, I stopped the descent, and I vectored them overhead the airfield. Okay, down to the south. Took them west. Of course, remember, weather is bad, so I have to be mindful of the fact that the vectors that I'm giving the aircraft, they cannot comply with. Okay. So what I did, and I said to each pilot, let me know if you have any weather on your nose. And then you tell me whether you can take a left or right. Okay. Now, that is a technique I always use. I always want the pilots to know what my plan is. Because when I start to vector, I don't want to hear no complaints. I don't want to hear it at that point. You tell me what's going. You tell me before, because I'm going to tell you initially what my plan is. Of course, it takes time to do that, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was, my style. And luckily for me, it wasn't bad enough that my vectors were, you were putting them in any weather. So I took them south of the field, west, and turned them back north, and then east, and then vector them. So what I did, I started what's called a spiral. Okay. So everybody who joined the circuit would join that spiral, regardless of where they were. It no matter. You join in that spiral. And I developed that spiral. And those who are interested in looking at air traffic, if you log on, if you get a chance to see traffic going into Boston, Logan, that they always have a wonderful sequence going to Boston. It's magical.
Okay.
So that's what I did. So I brought these guys around. The Air Jamaica that was coming from Manly, let him join the final. They understood the spiral. 2 guys that ended up being 4 guys really coming in from the northwest, and they just joined that spiral. And one of the guys, I'm not entirely sure who it was, one of the pilots, and just said, "Good controlling." And Sam, that is one of the things that we work hard for, to hear a pilot say, good job,
Good job.
good
Yeah.
control. When you hear that, you say, yeah, man, I earn my salary for the month.
Yeah.
So that was a challenging event. Um, there's another day, it was also a Saturday, very, very bad weather. It was so bad. I just had to have aircraft holding wherever they could. You know, I said to each pilot, look, just hold in clear air at your discretion. Just maintain altitude. Just maintain the altitude I put you at, and just fly where you need to fly.
Okay.
And they held, you know, aircraft held and whatever, blah blah blah. One by one, they tried to, you know, they made attempts, and some were successful. Some went back out to hold and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I had about 8 at one point, 8 aircraft holding all over the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Then comes this Delta 767 from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was halfway, he was going into Montego, but he's halfway between Jamaica and Cayman, just trying to dodge traffic, dodge weather.
Weather. Mm-hmm.
He gets to me and he says to me, what's my sequence? I say, you're alone, you're number one.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, all right, can we get some weather avoidance vector? I said, well, look here, your weather radar is better than mine.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell me where you want to go, and I will just give you the descent.
Sure.
And he said, all right. And I just gave him the descent, gave him the descent. He ended up just south of Savannah Lamar
Okay.
before he could turn back north. And he just meandered his way, and I just descent. If he turned left, I just watches the minimum vectoring altitudes, just
Sure.
gave him lower. And then somewhere, I think, somewhere south of Montego Bay, he had a field inside. And
Okay.
then he just executed a visual approach on a right base for 07.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in. So
Okay.
when he was over the interior of the island bouncing around, you know, he said, man, I appreciate you today.
Yeah.
You know, that warms the heart, Sam. Trust me, as a controller, that does it quick.
Trust
You
me,
know.
even more as a pilot, just putting myself in the pilot's position to have a controller be that accommodating when you're out there, just trying to get on the ground safely, for more reasons than one. I'm sure it's even heartwarming to the pilot as well to be able to have a controller that's
Not hearing you. Hearing you. Okay, hearing you now. Yes, we're good now. Yes, yeah, we're good. All right.
great. Uh,
Yeah. So I
yes.
mean, I also have to be thankful to the pilots who were, guys like Richie Cunningham, okay,
Mm-hmm.
guys like um, um, Peter Ramsey, guys like Michael Archibald.
Okay.
These guys fed me with an incredible amount of information about
Mm-hmm.
how aircraft really behave. You
Yeah.
know, I'm also very thankful for VATSIM, which is where I met you, because
Ah,
VATSIM,
yes.
yeah, so VATSIM really, the thing that VATSIM did for me was that
Mm-hmm.
VATSIM kept my radar skills going when I wasn't working any radar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, I was a VATSIM radar controller back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm very grateful for those opportunities as well.
Sure. I think hey guys, can you still hear us? We had there is one of those circle of death that Richard Cunningham had introduced us to that happened. But if you can hear us now and you can see us, just please give me a quick thumbs up to say that the audio and the video, the visuals are still good.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Sounds
Richie
good.
says that he can
Yeah.
hear us and see us. Yeah,
All right,
so
man.
VATSIM is a really good program, which there are a few persons that we're working with behind the scenes to actually allow us to introduce it to the club. So, the future pilots and not only future pilots, but future air traffic controllers can take advantage of to, learn the phraseology, actually use it, as well as the pilots can actually, learn to fly the airplane and actually use the phraseology, because it actually
Right,
helped me, when I went to flight school, because I've already been using the correct phraseology and understood how things worked. I was able to apply it, in the field even before I got a pilot's license, because
oh
I
yeah,
would I would fly with licensed pilots, and while they're flying, they'd say, all right, to talk on the radio. All right, you run the radios then, and they developed confidence in me when they realized that I knew what to say, how to say it, and then also when flying into a busy environment, knew what was happening, how to communicate,
right, right,
how to watch what the pilot was doing, and just kind of develop that CRM, and then put it out
right,
there in words to the air traffic controller and the other pilots out there, so that they could understand what
right,
we're doing, how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, where we're going, um,
right.
the whole 9 years. So we're actually working on something that we can introduce it to our club members in the near future. So yeah, it's a very good platform.
It,
So
it's brilliant. It's brilliant, absolutely for networking, absolutely, because
mhm,
and Richie Cunningham just posted a while ago that I introduced him
to it,
to
okay.
to it. Um, I was introduced to it by Peter Ramsey.
Hmm.
Um, and I was trying to, one of the things that I was trying to do back in those days was to introduce one of my female friends to it.
Okay.
Because I said to myself, if Kingston, if Kingston virtual could have a female controller, it would be a selling point, with an anomaly in the
Yeah,
whole Vancouver region, because there's no
yeah.
female
Females,
controllers.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
I just couldn't get her to budge. But
Yeah.
but yeah, vaccine for me is critical
Hmm.
for youngsters coming up, whether they want to be controllers or they want to be pilots.
Hmm.
The networking involved, and of course, for me though, vaccine. One of the reasons why I really pulled away from vaccine was because um, I think it started to become too serious, a little too serious, and it's still about fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a little too serious, and I at the time, I said to a couple of colleagues, I said, hey, um, it's losing the fun factor, and I don't want to be a part of something that was, scaring away, um, potential people.
Sure.
But
Sure.
but yeah, vaccine was awesome, definitely.
Yeah. All right, Richie. So so a little bit now after your air traffic controlling career, after you had left Jamaica and went to the United States, you got into airport operations. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. All right. Before I get to airport operations, when I left Jamaica, I didn't come straight to the United States. I left Jamaica and went to Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi. Okay. Hmm.
Right. So, and Peter Ramsey, Richie Cunningham, Martin Sutherland, um, Donald O'Meally, Rafari Brewery, a lot of these guys, they were there, and I met Yuri Campbell over there, and
Hmm.
awesome guys. Bradley James was there, Mark
Yeah.
Coley was there. A lot of the guys that I knew from Jamaica were there,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they made me feel very, very comfortable.
Sure.
Um, Now, I I applied to work for a company over there in Abu Dhabi as a controller, and I
Hmm.
was successful. Um, the unfortunate thing is that it didn't work out exactly the way I planned it. Okay.
Okay.
Um, I would tell you this: Abu Dhabi is a wonderful place. The UAE is a wonderful place. It's probably not what you think,
Hmm.
okay, but it's also not what you think. Um, and Richie would have spoken about a lot of the misconceptions about
Sure.
the region. And I will tell you that most of the things that I had a problem with had nothing to do with the weather, the religion,
Hmm.
none of that. Okay. this, my experiences there um, was not as positive as
Okay.
these guys, primarily because I was there as a controller.
Mm,
It was not a Jamaican. There was never a Jamaican controller there. I was
mm-hmm.
the first.
Yeah.
So, I was at the cutting edge of that.
Mm,
And I don't believe that the folks that I worked with they were particularly welcoming of me.
oh.
Um,
Yeah.
they didn't like the fact that I was a Jamaican. At one point, I was the only controller at that control tower that had a level 6 English language proficiency certificate.
Okay.
Um, Now, I was there with British controllers, American controllers, and none of them had a level 6. Now, for those who are not familiar, level 6 English language proficiency certificate means that I will never have to take that exam again. I am officially, um, my English is perfect, put it that way. For aviation purposes, it's perfect. So if you have a level 5, you have to resit the exam every number of years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the issues. The moment I got mine, all of a sudden you started to hear that, oh, how can a Jamaican have a level 6 and an Englishman have a level 5? There's something wrong with the test. Blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started to notice a change in the attitude towards me.
Okay.
And it it got worse. Got worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, you know what? I'm done.
Enough is
I'm
enough.
done. Yeah, because let me tell you something. One of the things, and you see, I feel it necessary for those, especially the aviation industry, to be honest, to understand that what we have in the West Indies, what we have in Jamaica, is something to be fought for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because when you go overseas, you are no longer your first class citizen. I don't care where you go. From you leave Jamaica, you're not a first class citizen anymore.
Yeah.
In Jamaica,
Okay.
whether you come from Tivoli or you come from Upper St. Andrew, you're a first class citizen.
Mm-hmm.
No two ways about it. So my experience um, was that I was a threat, not to the local, not to the Emirati, but to other expats who saw my position as being, it was taken away from something they had.
Yeah.
Um, But in general, the country, there are issues about the country that don't make no sense as far as I'm concerned. And
Yeah.
things can get difficult to live there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the cost of living is high. It's safe, but cost of living is high.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not even a third class citizen there as a Jamaican.
Okay.
But it is it is what it
What
is.
it is,
But
yeah.
I never had any issues with how the Emiratis run their country. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have any issues with that. Okay,
Okay.
there are some little things that you know I scratch my head about, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I decided that enough was enough, and if the you know if the unforeseen did happen, um, the truth is that they could have gotten rid of me at any point. There's no recourse. There's no, there's nobody to complain to and say, look here, this man a fight against me.
Mm-hmm.
A man just make a decision and that's it. You're done.
Okay.
So I decided that, enough is enough. And
Mm-hmm.
then I came to the United States. My family
Okay.
was already, my wife, my daughter, they were already here.
Mm-hmm.
I was, we were making plans for them to come over there, but I got to a point. I said, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I left my ATC career in Abu Dhabi,
Okay.
and I came here, and I have no regrets, Sam, none whatsoever. And I can
Sure.
speak openly. I walked away from a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
That part is true. I can
Yeah.
tell you, a whole heap of money.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to be true to yourself. You understand? What
Yeah.
are you? What's your peace of mind worth? You understand? It's not all about money.
Money, yeah.
Jamaica, I say it again, whether you're whether you're in the aviation industry as a controller,
Mm-hmm.
flight information officer, pilot, mechanic, technician, Jamaica is worth fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right now the industry is in shambles in Jamaica, but I'm
Absolutely.
telling you, I mean I can remember I got the tail end of the real Jamaican aviation industry, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it was beautiful, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
There was an order to things, and you know, it
Just growing.
it's unbeatable, you know. But with COVID-19 and so forth, you're seeing a lot of the, the aviation industry around the world start to crumble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing now is that you know no aviation industry is beyond a shutdown, beyond
Yeah.
bankruptcy. You know, I do not wish it upon any one of my pilot friends, but I
Mm-hmm.
fear every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. You understand? I long for I wish, son, that I could snap my fingers and every one of my pilot friends back in Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
earning a good living, flying out of Kingston or Sandstone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wish. Talk to Peter Ramsey all the while and I tell him, I say, I wish I could snap my finger. We all were back in Montego Bay, you
Yeah.
know, a bata, as pilots would say,
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it. But we were all happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You understand? We were all happy. And
Um, what do you think it would take to get back to that stage? Because, I mean, before the whole pandemic, Jamaica's aviation industry was always on its knees for a long while. And as my favorite quote in this pandemic is from Albert Einstein, which I've said in a few lives, that in the midst of chaos, there's opportunity. And maybe with the pandemic, we have the opportunity now to rebirth the industry because everybody knows it's forced to start from scratch, right?
right,
The forced to really look at the way we do things, the way we do business, the way
right,
we live, the way we fly, all
right.
this, every single thing. So, but in your opinion, what do you think we need to do to get back to an area of growth? And when I say growth, I mean the commercial side has always been growing, but with the GA industry, the general aviation industry, what do we need to grow?
Okay. All right. One of the things that um, I noticed is the government of Jamaica was always very supportive of Air Jamaica. Okay. The government did a lot of bailing out of Air Jamaica. Okay. From the days of when they used to find ganja on Air Jamaica planes in New York and the US government seized the airplane and they have to pay how much $1 million to release the airplane,
Mm-hmm.
government paid. When it came time to salaries, government paid. But there was a side of Air Jamaica that wasn't labeled a side of Air Jamaica, but it was critical to it that the government paid no attention to. And it was a little company named Wings Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm seeing some of my colleagues here in the listings, and almost all of them went to Wings. Wings provide, there was a time at Air Jamaica where every single pilot there went to Wings.
Yeah.
So it could be said that without Wings there would be no Air Jamaica, but the government of Jamaica paid no mind to Wings.
Mm-hmm.
Wings was allowed to collapse. It should never have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Wings needed a bailout. Now, the aviation industry in Jamaica will never ever recover until the government first understands aviation. There's no government in the world that understands aviation. Let me say that. The US government don't, I'm telling you, the US
Yeah.
government don't understand aviation. The Jamaican government don't understand aviation. The British government don't understand aviation. Because the first thing about aviation is that if you're cutting costs, something is wrong. Aviation is the only industry that you cannot cut costs. I don't care what they say.
Yeah. Safety is paramount.
This is big money.
Yeah.
Aviation is big money. So the government has to first understand aviation.
Mm-hmm.
And be committed thereafter to aviation. And in doing so, there has to be somewhat of what's known as a Keynesian approach to aviation, where the government is going to spend money without any expectation of direct return. Okay, but what it does, it is a stimulus to something else that will come back to the government later on and benefit everybody. Okay, so the government has to commit, and whether it's, you have interest-free loans, whatever the case may be. I'm not an economist, but without government interest, okay, it will never get anywhere. It will never return. Okay, and at this point, we're talking about, on the GA side. Now, as far as an airline is concerned, I know in Jamaica, there's some degree of animosity towards Caribbean Airlines, for example. Okay, because Caribbean Airlines, they effectively destroyed Air Jamaica. Let's be honest. Okay, and it didn't have to happen, because a lot of people don't know that Air France and KLM, which is the Dutch national airline, are owned by the same company.
Okay.
Yet and still, they serve exactly. They serve the French people. They serve the Dutch people as two separate entities. They have their flags and their registration separately, etc. And it works. There's no reason why Caribbean Airlines and Air Jamaica could not exist as two airlines under one ownership. For whatever reason, they fell out of the deal. But what I will say is that a lot of guys who previously on the Air Jamaica who couldn't get a little bus, they did. So there was some amount of renewal of the whole industry there. So, there was some movement there. Okay. I believe that Jamaica has the, is it viable that
has the potential,
that there could be another Jamaican airline? I don't know. I would have to look at, some study would have to be done, but I think at the very beginning of it, the government has to first deal with the general aviation side of things. Because Richie will tell you, Martin will tell you, all of these guys will tell you that Jamaican pilots worldwide, okay, respected, have to be respected. There's nothing. I've heard stories from all these guys, and they'll tell you, when them start wheel your bus, and these English guys and whatever start to say, wait, where did you learn to fly, mate? And I can't believe it. But no, when a Jamaican go overseas, they say, where did you learn to fly, mate? Air Canada. JetBlue, Spirit. You see? So it has to start with general aviation, and the government has to spend money. There's no way we are running. No way around it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Do you think that they will do? That's another question.
All right. I don't really want to get too political, but I have to. I see the current administration, they are doing some things that they are in fact taking on a very Keynesian approach to Jamaica on a whole. Okay. And that is reaping benefits. Now, if somehow this government could some way get everything takes time. We understand that the road them need to fix and all this business. So, fine. But when the roads are fixed and everything, I believe that with the right voices, being, whispering in the ears, something might happen. But one thing is for sure, I personally do not ever want to see Tinsupen move to Vernon Field. It must stay right there. Okay. Whatever plans they have, Tinsupen, in my opinion, is critical. Very, very critical. and whatever
Absolutely.
money we spent on, you know, an airfield for training or whatever should be
Mm.
spent right
On
there. The
same time,
cost
yeah.
involved of doing anything else is restricted. It's not
Mm.
worth it.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that input. I will make a note and I will submit your application for the next Ministry of Transport to see if we can get you into to stem that change that we need going forward. Um,
Yeah.
but before we get to the questions segment, Richie, tell us a little bit about that the move to the United States, the experience in the airport operations field, and then we're going to open up to some questions
Sorry.
for
All
those who
right.
are here.
This one will be much quicker. Right. All right. So after moving to the United States, I actually worked with two airlines. I worked with Miami Air,
Mhm,
which is now defunct thanks to COVID-19, and Silver Airways.
mhm.
Um, there was a gap where I actually taught. I taught. I was a substitute teacher,
Okay.
which I hated beyond words. Um, and then I moved on. Well, I moved back into aviation when I got hired in Jacksonville
Okay.
as an airport and spaceport specialist.
Ah,
Yes,
you might
I
have to
almost
elaborate
needed,
on that.
I almost needed two business cards to get
The
my
name.
job on. So anyway, this was an interesting job for me. Um, it for the first time in my life, I understood what it was like to be at an airport but not have a bird's eye view. Okay,
Okay.
so after I started, well, let me first tell you what I did on a daily basis. I did everything because it was what the airport I was at was an airport called Cecil Airport,
Mhm.
okay, which is on the west side of Jacksonville, west side of the
Okay.
river,
Mhm.
Jacksonville. It was originally a naval air station, which was handed over to the to the civilian side of things
Okay.
in 1990.
Mhm.
And what it still is there's a heck of a lot of military movement still there because all the facilities, all the the length of the runways, etc.,
Sure.
um, facilitate the movement. So when I said military aircraft on a daily basis, I was in and driving in and around over 100 F-18s any given
Okay.
day. Okay,
Okay.
F7, I mean C-17, C5s, F-15s, F-16s. In fact, we had F-16s based there as part of the the um the QF-16 program, which
Okay.
for those who are unfamiliar, those are the drones. Those are the old F-16s that they convert to drones. They actually convert them to drones at that airport.
Okay.
So yes, Mr. Levy, I saw Blue Angels aircraft as well. They do maintenance there.
Mhm.
So in fact, as we mentioned, the Blue Angels,
Angels.
the F-18 that was used in the new Top Gun
Movie.
movie.
Mhm.
I've actually seen it, touched it. They brought it into my airport. It is now being converted to. It's actually a Super Hornet, so it's going to be the second Super Hornet that has been assigned to the Blue Angels.
Okay.
So so all of those Super Hornets will be converted to Blue Angels F-18s
Sure.
at airport.
Okay.
Anywho, so I was also exposed to F-35s. Okay,
Okay.
so four of them flew in one Saturday, and only three of them flew out. Yeah, it's a horrendous aircraft. Don't make anybody fool it.
Okay.
Worst thing. But anyway, so what I would do on a daily basis would, runway inspections, lighting
Mhm.
inspections. I would do badging, security stuff. Um, I would do what they call tenant compliance, where I'd actually go into the areas that were leased and make sure that the infrastructure, the tenant is keeping things up
It's
as per the lease.
maintained. Yeah.
Right? I used to do wildlife control.
Okay.
Yes, I used to drive around the airfield chasing coyotes and all this business. And, I was exposed to some seriously poisonous snakes and, oh, right. So,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I did a lot of airport husbandry.
Okay.
I learned a lot about um, aviation from the airport side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was there for 2 years. Um, but there's some decisions were made last year.
Mm-hmm.
Some administrative, some management decisions were made that it didn't go down very well, and a
Okay.
series of events, and ultimately um, the operations department, as it stood, was no longer um, it was no longer going in the direction that management wanted to go in,
Mm-hmm.
and so they made changes which I became victim of. So
Wow. Okay.
um, so at the moment, I'm just marking time until the aviation industry returns to normal,
Mm. Okay.
so that I can continue. So
Okay. Cool. Well, before we get into the question and answer segment, guys, if you have any questions for Mr. Tate, please post them below, and we'll get to them in a sec. I wanted to find out from you if you have any particular advice that you would give yeah, you would give to your younger self, or the younger aviation professionals that are coming up. What kind of advice would you give them? What kind of lessons would you um, what kind of information have you learned from past experiences that would help to propel them forward?
okay, all right. Um, on a broad, in a broad sense, I would say to the youngsters coming up that aviation is not glamorous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's make that clear. This is serious business.
Mm-hmm.
Aviation is hard, okay, because people get killed when mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not glamorous. This is serious business. Okay, now you have to love it,
Mm-hmm.
because I can tell you, anybody who decides to become a pilot, for example,
Mm-hmm.
the reality is that almost every pilot is going to face being laid off on average 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
That's the average if you get in.
Yeah.
And most of my friends, in fact, all of my friends have been laid off
Mm-hmm.
at least once. Some of them have got they've had their four,
Yeah.
okay? But they're still in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have friends who fly 787s, 777s, 350s, 340s, 380s. I have a friend who fly everything,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the common um, feelings is that they long for the day when they could just fly a 206 or a 182 across Jamaica.
Yeah.
They long for the that ability to land at Kirkvine with their vertical speed climbing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the freedom. Flying a 787 or a 340 or a 320 across the open ocean, not really flying.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not flying. It's not fun. Okay, and the Boeing pilots will tell you, or the Airbus pilots who flew Boeing will tell you that the yoke in front of them between the legs is not cool. Right, Richie? Right, Richie?
Uh,
Okay, so
yeah.
you have to go for controllers, for those who are coming up, they want to be a controller. And I would encourage anyone who is even remotely interested, give ATC a try.
Mm-hmm.
But please do not use it as a stepping stone to fly.
Mm-hmm.
Do not use it that way, because you will never truly get it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Truly, you will never be a great controller if you're a stepping stone controller.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
and I have said it several times that, and I'm sure it applies to pilots as well, that the great controllers, the great pilots, never make it into management.
Mhm.
This is probably why they, things are the way they are, because the people who truly love flying, who truly love controlling, who truly love turning wrenches, will never be in an office.
Mhm.
And so you have people sometimes that, and this is not always the case, but a lot of it does happen. That
Mhm.
people who get into office situations are people who are afraid. I'm afraid to fly now. I'm afraid to control.
Mhm.
Now look how working at the office here, so. And they really don't have that passion.
Yeah.
And to be in aviation, you have to be passionate. You
Mhm.
have to love this thing because you may not make any money. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a pilot who retires? Okay, retires, spending his entire life, and the biggest plane he ever flies is a Cessna Caravan. To the untrained eye,
Mhm.
never do so well.
Yeah, I said he's not successful.
Exactly, because there's a train of thought amongst pilots that you're not flying until your nose gears behind you. You understand?
Yeah.
So, but the truth is, from a controller perspective, look here, man. When you're doing something that I never did, so much respect to you, regardless of what you're flying.
Mhm.
Okay, but the underlying fact is not everybody will fly a jet.
Yeah.
Not everybody will fly a jet, and if you don't, it's no indictment because you
Mhm.
love them. Okay, I remember a few years ago, a young man that lived across the street from me in Kingston. He wanted to be a pilot. So I sat with his mother, asked me to have a little word with him.
Mhm.
So I said, "Why do you want to be a pilot?" Well, I want to drive an Aston Martin. I said, look here. I said, let me tell you something. I have friends that fly every type of plane you can think of, and none of them do drive Aston Martin.
Mhm.
I said, you're heading for a fall if that's the way you're thinking.
Yeah.
You are in this. If the guys are in this for the money, for the supposed girls,
Mhm.
for the Aston Martin, but needless to
Wrong
say,
industry.
wrong industry. But needless to say, you know what this young man is doing now? He's an apprentice mechanic at an Aston Martin dealer in England.
Maybe that's what he loved, just didn't know it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You understand? So he has found his space. He really wants to be around Aston Martin. So
Martin.
fine.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so my advice to young aviation enthusiasts, and is to love what you're doing, because
Mhm.
there may not be no money in it.
Mhm.
There may not be any money in it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the aviation industry is very, very unforgiving.
Mhm.
You're only as
True.
good as your first mistake,
Yeah.
because you may not. Some people say you're only as good as your last mistake, but you're only as good as your first,
Mhm.
because that first mistake could paint you for life
Yep.
as a
Right.
poor pilot, as an idiot controller.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very unforgiving.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. Hopefully, those who are listening will take that advice and run with it. All right, guys.
Yeah.
So, if anybody has any questions for Mr. Tait, please let us know or let him know in the comments. You can ask any questions that you feel like asking, and hopefully we get some answers.
Well,
But
if they have any questions thereafter, I just like to take the opportunity to let you guys know that I'm working on a YouTube channel that
yeah.
will be geared towards ATC.
Hmm.
Um, I haven't I don't have an exact date yet. I'm still working out a few bugs, but
Yeah.
surely through this medium, um,
Hmm.
you know, I'll get that good.
Jeremy Renford asking, when are you going to repost the 6-0 Gulf Delta and ATC? I think I've actually seen that video before, but did you remove it for some reason, or
Okay.
that's with
Okay.
Mark
Let me
Carey?
mark here. Yes. No. That was a video I did in 2014. Just before I left Jamaica. It
Hmm.
was done for a Jamaica Air Traffic Controllers Association dinner that we were having.
Okay.
And what what happened, unfortunately, it wasn't really for public consumption.
Ah.
So I did the video with the Top Gun theme music playing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran into some copyright issues once I put it on YouTube. I put it there just to show a couple of people, that they could. So it wasn't really intended for public consumption, but because it has a Top Gun theme in it, I actually ran into some copyright issues
Issues.
with
Okay.
YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's still there. I still have the video, but I am not. Um, it's not being available for general viewership. But
Okay.
I plan at some point, if I can find the original footage,
Mm-hmm.
I plan to replace the soundtrack with some royalty free,
Regular. Yeah.
or something that's more copyright friendly. But it's
All
still
right.
there. I mean, if somebody wants to take a little picture, I can send the link and I can watch it privately. But
Sure.
the public consumption, I'll have to address that.
Okay. Richie was asking, what's the story Solo was talking about? If you remember what that
Oh,
is.
um, what Sala was talking about, if I recall correctly,
Mm-hmm.
um, was a training officer that we had, um, by the name of James Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
James is a character. Much respect to Jimmy as well, because Jimmy was very instrumental in me becoming an area controller.
Okay.
Jimmy was my supervisor, my last supervisor before I left Jamaica, and he
Mm-hmm.
he did a lot for us on that shift, so that we could get training, because once you get to a certain point, um, training is really up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to the control center at 4 Winchester Road, if
Mm-hmm.
normally you'll start off as an approach radar controller with a manual sensor, and then whether you do what's called cross training. So it's kind of ad hoc, where you kind of link up with a training officer from the other side, and you kind of do an hour here, over there, whatever. So Jimmy really worked wonders, so that even me and Solo could get some hours, and hence get our cross training. So big up to Jimmy for that.
Okay.
But when we were in Montego Bay, Jimmy was an aerodrome approach controller at the time, and he was training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, he was training two guys, and one of them was Francis Allen. Okay, let's
Okay.
start there. Francis Allen. Um, he was sitting down there very serious,
Mm-hmm.
and fireman called, control tower, fire 5. So Jimmy said Allen sits there. So Jimmy said, talk to him, talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Allen said, what I said to him, answer him, songs a tower, no fire 5, songs tower. So Allen, fire 5, songs tower. So fire 5. So request permission to cross, the runway over to the terminal. So Allen turned to Jimmy and said, what I must do. So Jimmy said, tell him go on. So Allen, go on. So, so Jimmy said,
uh,
tell him on, go on. That's what you, my trainer, to tell me to say. So, so it became, so after a while, though, it became, this thing where, Jimmy, you have to be very careful what you tell Allen to say, he'd say, so, and then, it's just, just certain things like that, anecdotes that, me and Salah would share. The one specifically that he was talking about involved Charles Wright, that I see Mrs. Wright in the list there. Hello, Chrissy.
ah.
Um, and Jimmy was training him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, it's just fun reminiscing about all of this, because I miss air traffic.
Yeah.
I miss
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Would you become an instructor, though? Would you come back to Jamaica, join back the CAA, and maybe be an instructor or instruct somewhere else?
Um, no, Salah would love that, because Salah himself is an instructor right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he would love the company over there.
Okay.
But I love ATC and I miss it, and I think about going back into it. I think about coming home all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that on there are certain things, and Solo knows what I'm talking about. There are certain things that aren't in place for me to be an instructor at the school. Because
Okay.
prior to this, I was an on-the-job instructor for both Manley and Sangster radar,
Mm-hmm.
and a check ride officer for Sangster.
Okay.
So I do have, a certain amount of ATC training. I mean, on-the-job training experience.
Sure.
Um, outside of ATC, though, I also do have training as a procedure designer. I was actually sent
Okay.
to, yeah, I was actually sent to Oklahoma City
Mm-hmm.
to be trained to write procedures.
Oh,
um,
okay.
so I'm pretty well rounded. I'm sure I can be, of use to CAA,
Mm-hmm.
and I keep in touch with everybody there.
Sure.
Including the director general.
Yeah.
In fact, the director general was the first person I met when I went to do my first aptitude test all the way back in
Okay.
um in '99. Yeah, so I had known um Nari for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what's going on. But if and when the time comes, I'm sure
Okay.
um I could be accommodated.
Okay. Another question somebody asked was, when did you realize your love for ATC?
Um, I realized my love for ATC somewhere in 1999.
Okay.
Um, what it was like is I would be at home and, like, for example, I'm working an afternoon shift which used to start at 1 o'clock in the
Mm-hmm.
1 o'clock, and by 11 o'clock I want to leave home. I want to go.
Yeah.
It was just awesome. I would be on vacation. I would be
Mm-hmm.
on 2 weeks vacation, and after the first week, yeah. In
Come
those
back to
days,
it.
all I was doing was writing scripts. I wasn't doing any actual controlling, but I just wanted to be there. I would come in early and leave late. You
Yeah.
know, when I got to Montego Bay, that was a different level of it. When you start to get, the hang of things, and you start to realize, you 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 strive for that. You
Mm-hmm.
strive for that rush. We used to
Yeah.
create our own rush. We used to create our own rush just to get it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, the love started in 1999.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and it never faded. Never. There are times when I thought it did. There are times that I thought it did.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Sam, um, air traffic control is really easy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's really easy. But the problem is the human element, because all pilots want to land now. All
Mm-hmm.
pilots want to take off now. All pilots want to taxi now. But as a controller, you know that everybody except the first guy has to get a delay. And it eats away at you. And
Mm-hmm.
you start to do everything you can because you're trained to make things flow.
Yeah.
And it eats away at you. It's your own desire to make it work that makes it stressful. Okay?
Okay.
So, but it's really very easy. I found it to be easy.
Okay. Um, the next question that I'm seeing here, somebody asks, what does a check ride officer do?
Okay. All right. So in the training process, once you've completed your training in the school, you
Mm-hmm.
move on to on-the-job training. Okay, and depending on which discipline you're involved in, there are three disciplines. There's aerodrome, there's approach, and there's area. There are three major disciplines, and depending on which discipline you are engaged in, there will be a minimum time frame involved. Okay,
Okay.
in on-the-job training.
Richie,
So
let me
what
let
will
me
happen?
stop you for a second. Before you
Sure.
continue, we're coming up on the second hour. So we're gonna have to end this live and then come back again
Okay.
and answer the question. All right.
Okay.
All right,
Sure.
guys. So we're gonna end the live now and come back again and finish the question and answer segments. All right, so see you back in 30 seconds.
Okay.
All right, so we're back again for part two or part three. And then this would be our question and answer segment with Richard Tait. And the question somebody had asked was, what does a check ride officer do? So we're going to continue with the question and answer segment. And if you yourself have any questions, please write them in the comments and we'll get them answered as best as possible. Richard Tait to the live and continue with the questions. All right. Yes, Richard. So we're back again. So you can go ahead and answer the question about the check ride officer.
Okay. So as you progress, I'm not sure the gentleman or lady who asked the question is back with us, but you know we can proceed.
Yes,
if
they are.
Can. Right. Okay, good. So at certain points in your training, you will be evaluated. Okay. And when you are ready, okay, your training officer decides that you have reached the point where you know you are ready. Your training is done. Okay, there's not more training officer can tell you. Then you will go on. You will request a check ride. Okay, and then once the training officer requests a check ride, the center chief normally will initiate the check ride and assign a check ride officer. So the check ride officer will sit with the candidate quietly, okay, and say nothing. Just watch the candidate work. You know, it's similar to you know a pilot getting his license, his or her license. You know, and then once you get checked out, boom, you're signed off. Your next phase of training is your oral board. Okay. It's like, you know, the pilots, I believe they have oral board as well. So you sit on oral board. And yes, let us be open. I don't do well in exams. Let's put it that way. I don't like to be tested, you know. But thankfully, you know, I mean all that process.
Okay, cool. Question from me. How often do you guys get retrained as air traffic controllers? Like recurrent training?
Oh, touchy topic, Sam, touchy topic. Okay. The truth is, not often enough. In my almost 16 years in air traffic control, I've never been retrained. Okay.
Wow, okay.
There is a train of thought that, oh, it's not necessary, you're working every day. There are a number of limitations to recurrency training. I have been a proponent of a situation where we have simulators at Fort Winchester Road or somewhere connected to Fort Winchester Road. That should be identical to the actual control room. Okay. So that you can have, you know, recurrence training. I think someone is asking what's recurrence training. Recurrency training is just, you know, a follow-up to your initial training to make sure that you know you're familiar with the rules and regulations is up to par. However, I will say this: let's not say that that's not the case. That's not what I'm saying. There are times when the quality assurance department will send someone, you know, to cut you work today. And you will sit there, and then the quality assurance officer will, you know, evaluate you and say, okay, need to brush on this, that, or that. So that has been the means, at least when I was there, that was the means by which we had checks and balances to see, you know, if we were, you know, up to par. And I've never seen anybody fail that. So to the credit of the controllers in Jamaica, Not saying they don't need it, because there are times when I felt that um, it is somewhat level the individual to appraise him or herself of modern techniques and technology and such like. Depending on how interested you are in the aviation industry, it's kind of up to
Sure.
you. Okay, aircraft recognition, aircraft performance, it's really um, up to the individual to appraise themselves of it.
Okay.
Not, however, saying that, for example, aircraft recognition and aircraft performance should be taught.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much. It's too much. But at the same time, some degree of familiarity, for at least one of the things that I find has been problematic over the years is how we handle turboprops mixing in with our jet traffic. It's something that I believe we need to work on. Um,
Okay.
vectoring skills is something that if you don't use, you lose. Because the truth is, um, a lot of times we don't vector in
Yeah.
Jamaica. We don't need to, because fly direct, fly direct. You don't need to vector.
Yeah.
But that is a skill
Okay.
that is critical.
Yeah.
Critical to maintain it, and I think that is one way in controllers in Jamaica could benefit from retraining. But again,
Okay.
the retraining is pointless if the systems you're using to retrain don't truly mimic. And of course, this is where the government have to spend money.
Yeah.
Have to spend.
Well, I understand they spent big bucks recently to improve the air traffic system. I really don't know much about what was done, but I know they spent some big bucks um, to improve what they have over by the CAA at the control center.
Right. Well, I wouldn't um step outside of my lane and comment on that because I haven't seen them. I've seen a
Yeah.
few pictures. It's impressive. From what I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
it's better than what we had. And we
Mm-hmm.
had, Salah will tell you that what we had was cutting edge at the time. We had, voice recognition stuff, and it was. I mean, even more instructors who were former FAA and Navy Air Force controllers, that were brought down to train us. They had never seen anything like what we had.
Okay.
But because of a little bit of short-sightedness over the years,
Mm-hmm.
the license with Boeing, who was a developer of that system, was allowed to lapse. So we were without the use of that for a number of years. But I understand that a new system has been brought into play
Yeah.
that hopefully, they can get some good use of. But again, I've never seen it. I don't really have any
Know
true
much about
knowledge.
it.
Right, but I do know that steps are being taken, and that's a great thing. Like I said,
Yeah.
the way forward is money being spent. No two ways
Mm-hmm.
about it. Money have been spent.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. So, guys, do you have any more questions for Mr. Tait that you would like to get out there? I'm sure he's more than willing to answer any questions. Just please put them in the
Mm,
comments section, and we can get those answered. But
okay,
in the meantime, Richie, I just want to use the opportunity to thank you for being with us today. Thank you for making the time and making yourself available to give us that introduction to the air traffic controlling, especially back in your days. And as I said earlier, it was very inspirational to hear how you started, hear the changes that you needed to make, hear the things that you came, and also the positive impact that you have had on the air traffic industry in Jamaica, the controlling industry in Jamaica. So, before um, we finish, I just wanted to use the opportunity to thank you for that. At the same time, I'm seeing more questions coming in. Somebody's asking, have you ever dealt with any emergency landings?
okay. Thankfully, I haven't had many. but one of particular interest was one morning. I think it was a Sunday morning. There was an American 757 departing runway 07 in Montego Bay, and I was in the tower at the time. But radar had just started to be offered, or radar services had just started to be offered in aerodrome. Sorry, in approach. So I was still in Montego Bay at the time. Okay, so this would have been about 2007, somewhere there about. So cleared the aircraft for takeoff, and there was a gentleman in the tower, one of the ancillary workers, and I said to him, it's 757, brethren, going to Miami, look at this, because 757 is some performer.
Yeah.
Anyway, as usual, the aircraft rotate just after taxiway Charlie, nose up, and then when it got to about 1,000 feet, the nose just leveled up. Right away, I knew something was wrong. Something was wrong. So I call the radar controller, same time, I said, something wrong, call it back. And interesting, it was Nikki Gabby, my old training officer, was working at the time.
Yeah.
And she said, all right, let me know what it looked like. I said, I don't know, he leveled off. I said, okay. Pilot called me back and said, okay, we just hit a flock of birds. And we're going to shut down the number one engine because, we're getting a vibration, we're getting a signal. We're going to shut it down. I said, okay, say your intentions. Say, all right, we're going to come back around to land. I said, all right, no problem, visual approach 07, you're clear to land. I said, all right, roger that. And he joined the downwind. So I said to him, are you declaring an emergency? He said, no, not at this time. So, okay. So I called the fire station and I said, all right, look, this is the situation. And so I got them on the standby. By the time the 757 was midfield downwind, pilot said, okay, look here, we're getting a vibration out of the number two engine, we're declaring an emergency. So, all right, you're still clear to land. So I called the fire station and said, look here, man, this guy.
Emergency.
So anyway, needless to say, came back around at one engine and he landed safely and taxied under his own power to the gate, and the aircraft was in Montego Bay for about a week and change. They flew down another engine and all this business.
Okay.
So that was perhaps that's the biggest emergency I've ever handled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I
All
saw
right.
asking. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, man. There's some more questions. How many hours do you have to acquire at each level of training to become an ATC? But I believe Sherrick had answered that and said 90 hours. Is that accurate?
Okay, one of the things is that I was never an aerodrome controller by itself, and I was never an approach controller by itself. So, well, so my journey to that level is a little different. Sherrick could be better able to say because he went through that process. I didn't. And of course, my process no longer exists. But if I recall correctly, it's 180 hours to become an area controller. But by all means, somebody can help me out with that. It's been a while.
In the meanwhile, Pink Aviatrix Brittany had asked, how did they treat with incidents and accidents while you were an ATC in JA?
It was dealt with pretty much the same way it's dealt with right now.
Oh.
Okay. Speaking candidly, one of the things that I had advocated for, particularly when I was a union member, was for JCA to look at incidents in a more holistic fashion, because controllers have often been penalized for incidents that were really pilot-driven incidents. And when I say penalized, I have to be careful because CAA they don't view rating loss, for example, as a penalty. So if you have an incident, normally your rating will be pulled pending investigation. But there's no control in the world that doesn't look at their rating being pulled as a penalizing factor.
Okay.
So I've always advocated that another means. You can always take someone off the sectors without pulling their ratings. You understand what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yeah,
So,
man.
um, but as far as I'm aware, that has not changed. So,
Okay.
but things have improved because there was once upon a time where if a pilot says, just simply say, I have one TCAS, woo, that could be grounds for an investigation.
Really?
If
Okay.
pilot just simply saying, have the aircraft on TCAS, that could be grounds for an investigation back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So things have improved, you know.
Okay. All right. Let me see what the other question was. Did you have any close calls?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Um,
Yeah.
sweating bullets. Oh my God, several.
Okay.
One of the scariest was shortly shortly after it became mandatory that all VFR aircraft in Jamaica had to have Mode C transponders.
Transfer. Okay.
Right? Um, Not all of them had transponder.
Mm-hmm.
So you and I know that if you don't have a Mode C transponder, the TCAS on board that lovely 320 don't work so well because if
Yeah.
the 206 don't have a transponder, that TCAS is of no use to you.
Not going to pick it up. Yeah.
No. And I had a situation one day where I had a 320 executing a visual approach. It came in from Manly,
Mm-hmm.
um, flew over the airfield doing a left pattern visual. I had a Cessna 206 that was going to Negril, okay, at 2,000 feet. And I passed traffic between the two, which is all I'm required to do in a Class D environment.
Mm-hmm.
And the pilot of the 320, honestly, just was not, just wasn't doing a good job. I'm sorry to say, but just wasn't
Mm-hmm.
paying attention. And I
Okay.
watched, nothing I said to the guy and let me tell you, if that 206 had a transponder, it would have been a different story on board that aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my life. But again, you see, that was not a separation loss because we do not provide separation between VFR and IFR. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the rules say that the VFR aircraft must maintain a safe distance,
Okay.
whatever the pilot deems that to be.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, I was beside myself
Mm-hmm.
that you know
Okay.
it shook me up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I see where someone is asking about recovery time from an incident, I believe. And
The psychology question. What do you think about psychology of ATCs after incident? Is it easy to recover?
um, I have never had an incident um, of that nature, but psychology is something that is specific to the individual. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but I do believe that the a conduit for help should be
Mm-hmm.
there in case a
Okay.
controller needs. In fact, there are some that say that controller should be put through therapy, regardless of whether they think they need it or not.
Okay.
Okay, I've had colleagues who have had some serious things happen, and I tell you this, you know, the American 331 incident.
Oh,
That
that man.
one shook ATC to its core. Okay, and
Yeah.
I
Okay.
have my own personal opinions on how things occurred there, but eh,
Mm-hmm.
not really the forum for it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that
Yeah.
you know, it was rough. It was rough for everybody concerned, and you know, and I recall back in 2000, I believe it was 2000. I forget what Solo can't remind me of what year it was. One of our colleagues was killed in an accident out on Highway 2000, um, which wasn't ATC related, but it shook
It was
us.
one of your own, yeah.
It shook us. So, you know, but you know,
Okay. All right. Kurt said 2009 he believes it was.
right? Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there we go. Solo, yeah, 2000. Yeah. So
All right.
definitely.
Any more questions, guys, for Mr. Tate?
Yes. Rest in peace, Lost. Yep, Robert Law.
Let me see if I missed any questions. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions, Richie. So I think we covered all that we needed to. So, again, thank you for being here. I found some inspiration from just talking to you here, and hopefully those who have been here with us today found some inspiration as well. So another question: what's the number one most important attribute of a controller?
All right. This is going to sound a little odd, but I believe the number one trait of a controller is borderline insanity. Okay. You
You
can't,
mean that's our pilot?
well, so be it. But you cannot, honestly, you cannot be a controller and be totally sane. There's
Mm-hmm.
no controller who not slightly off key. So, but on a serious note,
Mm-hmm.
they, their Sherrick said arrogance. Yes, I will agree. You definitely have to have a level of arrogance, um, because no matter what happens, you have to sound like you are in control. You have
Mm-hmm.
it. Even when you are shaking like a leaf and you're not really sure this going to work, because if you sound uncertain,
Mm-hmm.
pilots will pick it up and they will be hesitant. They will not be confident.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you definitely have to have a good degree of arrogance. But I say that with caution because a lot of us, especially in the United States, never, ever, ever separate the arrogance required for the job and
Mm-hmm.
our own personal arrogance.
Arrogance. Okay.
Okay? Because you get into a level where you become rude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? See, Martin says confidence, not arrogance. Yes, Martin, it's today. I would take it just a step above confidence. You have to be a little above confident
Mm-hmm.
because of that arrogance that you have will hold you, will keep you when your plan is falling to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
That in it, that inside arrogance. But as you mature as a controller,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you you realize that to be rude is
Mm-hmm.
not confidence. It's not good controlling.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will say that, even this morning, in the WhatsApp chat room, we're having a little chit chat there about, that incident or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I find that a lot of controllers, they mistake the word controller for anything other than a word. It's a mere convenience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We are air traffic controllers because the word sounds nice, but let's be honest. Okay. Pilots do what controllers say because they don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their license. They don't want to lose their life.
Mm-hmm.
If you work as a pilot that do business with one of those three,
Mm-hmm.
you can't tell him or her nothing. You're not controlling nothing. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so, um, so to say that it's important for controllers to understand that information, telling the pilot, look, you may not be required to do certain things by law, but
Mm-hmm.
simply saying to the pilot, listen, sir, if you continue with this is what's going to happen. By simply saying that, the Bible will tell you, a kind word turneth away wrath. Not because you're not required to buy. Okay, all right. What you're gonna do? Fold your hands and say, "Oh, well, the law say no." I'm not saying nothing to him because the law said, the rules said. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
You have to get off your high horse and say, "Look, I mean, in my 15 plus years, I've never violated a pilot. I've never reported a pilot. Never. I don't need to because the
Yeah.
moment if a pilot does something that I don't like, if I report him, they're not gonna just investigate the pilot. They're gonna investigate me too." And they guarantee they're gonna say, "Oh, but Mr. Tate, you weren't professional, you weren't speaking very professionally to him." I don't want, and I don't need it. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, you definitely have to develop a sense of maturity. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, and that maturity is what will um protect you from being, that arrogance getting too far.
Yeah. What's happening here? Ah, there we go. I don't know this Instagram.
You're good.
All right. There was another question. I don't know if you want to answer this one, but
Go
Tara,
ahead.
Earpack, Timir, Airj Express, or Airlink, who is the best?
Look here. I'll tell you something. They all have their space because a lot of times how we used to control, after we got to know the pilots, we used to give them instruction based on the company rules, what the company would allow. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes that's all you had,
Yeah.
based on how the pilots were paid, how the pilots, all kinds of things we used to use to decide who was number one or whatever. So we had friends all over. We had good pilots all over, bad pilots all over. So, I never had a preference.
Favorite.
Although I will
Yeah.
say to you that Timir has always been very friendly and warm to the controllers. I mean,
Yeah.
Christmas time you can tell it. Bet your bottom dollar, Mr. Mac may send a cake. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Easter time, Mr. Mac may send a bun and cheese and a thing. So
Yeah.
we've always had a very good relationship with Timir from in my time. So if
Yeah.
based on that, I would say, Timir was, a little bit friendlier than the others. But I will say that Airlink, I mean, Levy used to say, "Tate, anyone who up at the talk can fly upon my plane, them got town for free, and I'm good boy." So
Yeah.
I can't leave out Mr. Levy either. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Tara, I mean, look, they've all been excellent. Airpack, look,
Mhm.
man. I mean, much respect to Mr. Reed. I
Mhm.
mean, I've had no problems with any one of these operators at all. So,
Okay.
much respect. And again, I know Mr. Reed is your boss and thing, but believe me, I much respect for what he has done for the aviation industry and what he continues to do. So,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Somebody asking again, I guess they missed the information earlier. What is the process of becoming ATC in Jamaica? Schooling, training before on the job. So if I remember correctly, it's just to apply. In a modern day, of course, they'll ask for you to have a degree. I don't think it's specified in what, but just to have a degree and then make a formal application to the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority. And I mean, they will advise you as to what the steps are after, you know.
right, pretty much. Yeah. It's really an easy process to apply. Don't be afraid. It's not some grandiose thing.
Mhm.
The it's really very straightforward. Nothing fancy about it.
Mhm. All right, the next question. Is there any difference between ATC in JA and ATC in the USA? I'm not sure what differences there. Oh,
Sorry, I
yeah.
lost my sound for a second. Okay, I'm back now.
Did you hear the question?
No, go ahead again, please.
They were asking what's the difference with ATC in Jamaica as in comparison to ATC in the United States?
Okay, all right. Full disclosure, I have not worked ATC in the United States, but I've observed it. Um, the difference, the major difference, obviously, is that Jamaica follows ICAO standards and United States follows FAA standards. Now, if you want to look at it this way, FAA standards are kind of set in stone, whereas ICAO regulations can be tailored for each individual jurisdiction. So ICAO rules are a little bit easier to follow. They're a little bit more flexible. All right. What I find is the equipment that US ATC uses is backward and archaic. Oh my God. I mean, the equipment that we have in Jamaica, I mean, as much as the radar systems that I use in Jamaica was old, it's light years above what the Americans are using. Okay,
Yeah.
the average radar room in the United States dark, like in a submarine. It's in Jamaica, it's brightly lit. It's a different environment. There's a lot of gung ho type of attitude, and American controllers, in my opinion, tend to be somewhat rude. Not that I don't respect them, but give me my Jamaican controllers any day.
Yeah. Okay.
But I see someone mentioning QNH setting, altimeter settings. What we're finding actually is a lot of aviation in the United States is becoming very metric, is becoming very ICAO centric. Even the airport designs are moving towards an ICAO type of labeling of the taxiways and so forth, where you have alphanumeric names as opposed to, just alpha.
Alpha.
So
Okay.
Sherrick chiming in on his differences about Class D and all of that. But
Okay.
you know,
All right.
I,
Yeah, because somebody was asking about Class D airspace, so I guess Sherrick just took that upon himself
right,
to answer that one. So that should be good.
right.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing. Go ahead.
I was saying thanks to Sherrick. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna let you go now, Richard. But again, thank you again for spending the time with us to, provide us with all this information and sharing your journey and experiences with us.
Right.
It was very informative, very exciting as well, and I'm glad to have had you here with us. To share all of that with us. Sherrick laughing at me.
Well, I tell you this. Well, Sherrick was one of my trainees, so
Okay.
yeah. So here's the thing. Sam, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I've known you for quite a while. This is the second time that you've invited me to speak with your group. The first time was when you were at Meadowbrook, and
Meadowbrook, yeah.
your group there, and it was equally um, an honor. I mean, believe me. And I just want to take the opportunity um, just to let you know, Sam, that the aviation industry is it's yours. Believe me. You are playing a very, very important role. People who have been in the industry for several times the amount of years that you have not contributed as much as you have. And I want to personally encourage you to continue. Okay, I I remember when I saw you in your khaki uniform up at Middlebrook. I said to myself, this little man is going to wear a black pants, a white shirt, and some bars on his shoulder, really now. Because
Yeah.
as an adult looking at you, and I know Richie shares the same opinion. It was amazing what a youngster, teenager, accomplished at the time when you did. Okay, so as a 20-plus-year-old now, I'm not surprised. So please, I want to encourage you. Okay, you have my number. The other day when you gave me a number, I've already had never took it out of my phone. I had it
Yeah.
since those days.
Mhm.
And you can always give me a shout. We're in contact and so forth. And
Definitely, definitely.
we just want to encourage you and let you know that it's a rough road. Keep trying, don't give up.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. And I will. because you know, just as you had mentioned, people like Chris Reed, you know, there are those who have turned back and given a helping hand to me to bring me to where I am, and it is my goal to do the same for others behind me. And not only that, one of the ways that that I enjoy aviation is through sharing it with others. You know,
Yes.
it
Likewise.
gives me that
Likewise.
fulfilling feeling. So you know, that I do plan to continue, and hopefully I will, you know, continue growing along the way. You know,
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
yeah, man.
Yeah,
All
man.
right. Well, thanks again, and you know, we'll keep in touch. You know, stay safe out there. Hopefully, things will work out for you again soon to get back out there, within the industry. But until then, you know, stay safe, and we'll be in touch. And thanks again.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Definitely. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and see you again next week Sunday, same time, same place.
All
All
right.
right, guys. Take care.
Good.